It's all in your approach. How do you approach your business? Have you identified your special sauce? That's what sets you apart from other people in your industry. And if you have, do you lead with it? This is one thing I love about today's guest, Penny Fox. Although she is a Pinterest expert, her special sauce is in practical productivity steps when working in Pinterest. So the term social media productivity coach is much more apropos. She has a way of approaching Pinterest so that it fits within your business lifestyle. Yes, we can get all the information about pinning, but without the systems, it just becomes more things we know and don't use. So I'm excited to have Penny here to talk all things Pinterest, from answering my question, is it too late to get in on the Pinterest bandwagon, to going into how keywords are where the magic happens. I'm starting my own Pinterest journey, and I'm at the very, very beginning. So I'll want to revisit this conversation with updates. In the meantime, get ready for some great info with Pinterest traffic builder, Penny Fox. You're listening to the Long Game Podcast with Sandra Scaiano. In a world where everyone is doing, it's easy to get lost in a sea of comparison, secret tricks, and promises of overnight success. The long game is my approach to business. The actual day in and day out philosophy that you have to show up, you have to do the work, and there's no quick fixes for long-term success. I'm a web designer, digital strategist, and energetic thinker, and I'm here to share the process and lessons I experience with my clients daily who are going through the same struggles of building a business as you are. We'll hear from successful entrepreneurs sharing their long game strategies, and I'm fun, so we're going to have a little fun along the way too. Thanks for being here. Let's get to today's episode. So welcome. Today I have Penny Fox with me, who is the Pinterest traffic driving expert. And we're going to dig a little deep now. I have been getting much more into Pinterest in my own business. And Penny is someone who I've been working with for a few years now. And I've been back into her layer, into her world of Pinterest as I'm going back into things with my podcast now. So Penny and I have a lot to discuss about Pinterest and how to use this to drive traffic over to your website, over to the content that you're creating. So welcome, Penny.
Hello. Thank you, Sandra, for having me today.
Awesome. So, okay, first off, this is my number one. Let's just make it clear to everybody that Pinterest is a search engine, not a social media channel.
That is correct. That is one of the biggest things that I have to share with people when they first get started on Pinterest, because they want to talk about their followers. They want to talk about how many people like my stuff. They want to talk about, should I be repinning a certain number so that somebody will follow me back? And should I comment on people's pins? I have to explain to them, when you go onto Google and you run a search for a blog post, are you looking for people to follow you back? Are you looking for people to comment back on a search that you did on Google? You don't. You're on Google to search for something. And that's what Pinterest is. But the beautiful thing about Pinterest is it's visual. And the thing that makes it so amazing and why so many millions and millions of people are going to Pinterest, as a lot of times that's one of their first places that they go for a search, is because we're visual people. When we run a search on something, it's so much easier to see the results come up visually versus a whole bunch of text, like you get at Google. And quite honestly, if you really study what's going on with Google, usually the search you run, somewhere about the third or fourth line is a Pinterest pin or a Pinterest board. They are coming up. The optimization that we do on Pinterest as a search engine is actually having us show up on Google.
Totally. And that is really the thing I try and drive home with people. Like, Pinterest is another form of your search engine optimization. It's another way to get your content out there and have it be found. And it kind of takes the pressure off too, because there isn't that, oh, I've got to go in and engage with the audience piece. Like, you are learning about your audience there because you're looking at your analytics, you're seeing what people are feeding off of or liking or what's going viral. And then you can go do more of that, but you're not having to engage and grow it in the same way that you do a Facebook or an Instagram kind of thing. So you always know that Pinterest is like, hey, I need a DIY idea, a design idea, or I'm planning a baby shower. So tell us about some of the other industries that Pinterest is really good for. Like, who should really be on it?
Those people who the majority of their target audience is women. As much
Mhm.
as we love to think that men are scrolling on Pinterest, they're not. I'd have to say if 85% of your target audience is women, they're most likely on Pinterest. And the interesting thing about it too is it's not targeted towards, 18 to 34 or 25 to 54. It runs the full gamut. I would say 18 to 64. You're going to have a huge
Wow.
number of people. And the difference in the age is just how they're looking for it because what they're searching for. A 64-year-old is not going to be
Mm.
searching for a baby shower. But a
Right, right,
20-year-old is not going to be searching for where am I going to go now that I'm retiring? Where am I going to go on vacation this year?
right. Or lose weight with
Oh my
menopause
God, yeah,
during menopause.
exactly. So how they're using it and what they're searching for is different. So the other thing I would definitely say is for local businesses, there is a way for you to use Pinterest with regards to, and we can talk about that when we get to that section about the keywords with the hashtags. You can localize your content, but I would say
Mm.
for the overall usage of somebody who's going to use Pinterest, it is in your best interest to have the option to have something online, even if I'm just downloading something to get onto your email list. Because
Mhm.
you are going to have a greater chance of somebody finding your content who may not live in your neighborhood. And so if they're coming to your, website and they're finding your content, what's that call to action that they're going to do? And if it's just because I need to stop into your store because it's 2 blocks down from my house and I live across the country, that makes it a little bit difficult for me to engage with a client. So as far as an industry goes,
Right.
I say it runs the gamut. Quite honestly, I have in my personal experience of being, a Pinterest coach and been doing this since, oh my God, 2011. I think that's when I first started.
Wow.
I have worked with everything from
Wow.
antique stores to right now I'm working with a bridal dress where you come in and, you set an appointment and they create, designer dresses or they find designer dresses for you. I've worked with people who are selling an online academy. So to
Mhm.
me, I can't really tell you that, oh, these people are no good and these people are really good. It's more about who you're talking to. Is it women? And do you have some sort of opportunity for us to connect with you online? That's really the best answer I can give you.
Awesome. Right. And I do have to say to that, since our time working together, like you have inspired me in terms of being like, I've got to get like, I even thought of something that I just did in my keywords podcast a few weeks back. And I was like, I can turn that into a PDF so that I was like, when I drive traffic from Pinterest over, people can sign up. Like, there's the 10 things you should know about keywords, and it's a PDF to download. And that all comes from our engagement together about having a purpose. And it's been so top of mind, having a purpose to, when you drive people in your call to action, give them an action
Right.
to take.
Yeah. Let's sit on that one for a few minutes. If we
Okay.
could, because that is a really important piece. As you know, you are a part of a group that I have called the Pinterest Traffic Builder Program. And it's about using Pinterest to drive traffic to your website. But one of my biggest goals, and one of I think that people are missing when they do try to utilize Pinterest, is that call to action. What is my next
Mm-hmm.
step? What do you want me to do? If I have actually taken the time when I'm scrolling through Pinterest and stopped, clicked on your pin, and not just saved it, but clicked over to your website because whatever it is that you're telling me is so fascinating and amazing and stupendous, I've got to go there. And you've got me on your website. Don't lose me.
Right.
What can you do to retain me as a potential customer, as a potential reader of your blog, to get on your email list, to join your Facebook community? What can you do to keep me connected to you if I've taken all these steps to actually get to you? And so I think it's a really important piece too. And as you are now discovering, Pinterest isn't just about, oh, how pretty is my Pinterest pin? What's the next step? How can I get you to engage with me from a perspective of, like I say, being a potential client? I can speak from that from personal experience because I cannot tell you how many people have actually gotten onto my email list from Pinterest. And when we finally start working together as clients, and I'll say to them, how did you find me? And they'll say, I don't know, something came up on Pinterest and I clicked over it and I got on your website and then I downloaded your free ebook and now I'm on
Mm-hmm.
your email list. And then you talked about this program or you talked about, doing coaching sessions and I've been following you. So yeah, now I'm with you.
And it's the ultimate funnel. I mean, that's what you did. You led them down the line to purchase. So smart. And, not to get all, we're not going to go over in depth into the funnel piece, but it's an important part. And it just really means breaking down the process of getting someone to work with you from when they first meet you and when they first encounter you. What are you going to do to engage them? That even starts, the funnel starts with the pin, what you're doing to engage them. What's the call to action to bring them over to your website? Then what are you doing to engage them there? What's the call to action there? Again, it's leading them through the next step. So, I'm on with a lot of female entrepreneurs who are like, oh, the funnel, and it's really just, let's break it down and talk about what is that process. Like every step of the way, there's a next step.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be complicated. And sometimes there's space in those next steps. Like you just said in your example, this person was on your email list for 4 months before they then were like, oh, you have a Pinterest course, or they decided to leap in. So that next step was engagement through a newsletter that gets sent out weekly or biweekly or whatever it is. So I think that's an important piece to think about all of those steps as well. All right. And this one, I'm asking for myself too, as I go further into getting into Pinterest, right? Okay. It's so crowded, like we know, like you've been doing it since 2011. It's now 10 years later. And I'm like, I'm just getting started. Am I too late? Have I missed the boat? Is it like oversaturated?
No. That's like saying, can I not submit my blog post to Google?
Awesome.
It's the same thing.
Right.
It honestly is. You got to remember that as much content it is out there, the number of users are increasing.
Mm-hmm.
But I will tell you now, and the best thing about Pinterest is it can become very topic specific. So while you think it's so crowded and there's so many people on there and there's so much other pins and content, but when you allow your content, which I mean your pins, I will interchange, say content and pins, it's the same thing to me. But when you make sure that your content is very specific, you are going to connect with the person that's looking for that specific topic. So if there's 100 people out there looking for golden retrievers, what's the best toys for a golden retriever? That is so content specific that if that's all you do, my goodness, there's going to be a ton of people out there who are going to find your content. I don't think in any sense, shape, or form that if you are not involved in Pinterest at this moment, that you might as well just throw up your hands and go, no, I'm not going to do it.
Right. Awesome.
Jump right in.
And it's good because it is a matter of, to your point and us talking about it being a search engine, how you're optimizing. If you're really targeted with what you're optimizing your pins for and your descriptions and your titles, you will find your people. So it's good to know and reassuring because we've all scrolled Pinterest and it's just whoop, 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 some of the same things and all of that. So it's good to kind of have it being brought back to that original point of it's a search engine and it's just like you optimize your blog post for Google now, and you're going to be found there. So awesome. And that also brings me to like the whole look of things, designing pins and everything. I mean, this is a workshop unto itself, but let's talk about what's happening now, 2020 and into next year of like, what are some of those design elements that we need to think about and what's happening there?
I think when I look at designs, one of the first things that I do whenever I work with a client is I tell them to go to your home feed, go to your home page and start scrolling around and set a timer on yourself and just scroll around for a minute and ask yourself, what's catching my eye and why? Did that one catch my eye? That caught my eye because that's orange. Did that catch my eye because the font is really large and it says words that resonate with me? And so when we start to take it down to just the smallest little thing is font size, making sure it's a clean font. I love a cursive font, but it's horrible on Pinterest because you can't read it. Because you got to remember that the majority of people are actually looking at Pinterest on their phones. So
completely.
If I can't even read it on my desktop, it's going to be horrible on my phone. So ask yourself, why is this color jumping out at me? Why is this image drawing me in? If you spend a few minutes doing that, you're going to find bright colors. Bright colors are huge because what's happened is within the last couple of years, Pinterest now has the background of white.
Right.
And so years ago, we used to think there was these great little images where we show this beautiful picture of somebody's desk and maybe it had a couple of things like a stapler and a beautiful notebook on it, but they all had these white backgrounds. And now
Mm-hmm.
they just get lost. They get lost in the feed. Something with a black background is going to pop a whole lot better. But you know it's going to even look better? Red, pink, orange, purple, even a bright green is going to do so much better than a white background. We used to also say years ago not to put people's faces in there
Mm-hmm.
because there was a whole thing about people's faces. But now you're seeing more and more faces, and you're also seeing more and more faces of diversity. And I
Mm-hmm.
love everything about that because for me, one of my clients does an online academy. And so when I create her pins, I look for women of diversity. I want a woman of diversity to be looking at her pins and going, that's me.
Mm-hmm.
That's me sitting at my laptop. I could join her academy. That's me talking to another friend across the table. I could be a part of this academy. So when we looking at pictures, you know, we want to be able to see ourselves in it. As a matter of fact, my new client with the bridal dresses, we're actually going to be obviously going to be showing beautiful models wearing the dresses. But I had asked her, she has an Instagram account where she's got real women who have come in and tried the dresses and they
Awesome.
send her pictures of their wedding. And I said, I want those real women pictures. I want a real woman who's looking for a dress, who's not
Mm-hmm.
size zero,
Yeah.
and you know who wants to see, and she sees this amazing woman who has been dressed by your company from your business to be able to see themselves in that image. So when we think about the image themselves, we have to think about the image of the pin. Who's my client? Who am I talking to? What am I trying to explain to them? What is the idea? What is the goal of it? What is the call to action?
Right.
What do I want them to do? What's the story that I want
Mm-hmm.
to tell? So my images for what I do are going to be completely different than somebody who's with a bridal industry or an antique store or something like that. So I would, if I have to give you like the overall, I would say stay away from any white background. Try to go brighter colors. Make sure that font is large and
Mm-hmm.
clean. And I don't have a problem if it's a serif font or a sans serif font and all those kinds of words you want to throw out.
Right.
Just avoid the decorative fonts. That's all I could. That's my biggest thing. Avoid the decorative fonts because they're not going to work. They're not going to be able to see it. And one of the biggest tips that I could give you if you're just getting started and you're not sure what your pins look like, set up a secret board on your account, upload your pin to your secret board, and then pull it up on your phone.
Mm.
And see to yourself, can I read this? Can I see this? And on the secret board, it's going to have a white background too. Is this popping? Or does this
Right.
blend right into my white background? And so if you're still trying to figure out, that's one of the best ways that you can decide, you know, especially look at it on your phone to see, because on, you know, desktop, it's 900 by 1300. On your phone, it's like the size of your index finger, if even that big.
Right. Completely. And you need to really be thoughtful about all of the text and what you're putting on it because you feel like you have so much more room when you're on a desktop. But when it shrinks down,
Mhm.
you've really got to be targeted with what you're saying and what you're putting on there as well.
Yes.
I love that you just brought up story though, because we forget. I think sometimes with Pinterest, we're just about here's what I'm doing, here's what I'm doing, rather than even though we say it's a visual search engine and different than social media, I think there's still that opportunity to weave story through
Yeah.
because you're creating these boards about your business and
Mhm.
your brand. And so there's still an opportunity to bring yourself forth and what you do. So I
Mhm.
love that concept of bringing story into it,
Yeah. Yeah. You can almost storyboard it if you think about it when you're creating
right?
pins. You know, I could create a series of pins for one blog post and I could storyboard the whole thing that would say, you know, this is the first part of my blog post, the second part of my blog post, third part. And I can make a pin with each one of those pieces of my blog post and would direct
Brilliant.
it back to the same blog post.
Right. And I think it also is a way when we talk about bringing your brand story, it doesn't
Uh-huh.
have to just be everything that you do as a service or you sell as a product. There's also that opportunity because once people, I feel like once they kind of start following you or get a sense of who you are, like then they start to explore other areas. So it's,
Mhm.
oh, who are you? You know,
Yeah.
who are you, Penny? What else do you do? Oh, you love dogs. Okay, now I'm like endeared to you a little bit more too, you know.
And not just dogs, golden retrievers.
And in particular, right, as my yellow lab is like scratching at the door and everything here. So,
Yeah. Mine are down here underneath my feet. That's why I said that earlier.
awesome. So let's hop into what is really my favorite thing about Pinterest is the use of keywords. I mean, for me, this is like the fun part, as nerdy as that sounds. But it's really like, that's the interesting piece. It's a puzzle. Like, how are you setting yourself up so that you can be found? How are you using the tools that Pinterest allows us so that you can be found? I did just do a whole piece on keywords. So we know that it's about listening to what your audience says, the words they use. And one thing I want to point out is, let's stay away from some of those clever things. If you're a health coach, don't say you're a health superhero, because nobody's searching for health superhero, So those pieces, like, let's really listen and use those terms in our areas on this pin. So let's dive into some of what your expertise on keywords.
Okay. One of the best tools that Pinterest has is the very, very top. And when you log in, you're going to see like a little magnifying glass. And when you click on that, and it opens up into the search, it's actually called the Pinterest guided search. And they refer to the word guided search because what happens is you start typing in words, new keywords and phrases come up. And that's Pinterest telling you, these are the keywords and phrases that people are actively using right now on this website to look for this particular topic. So what you're going to do is you're going to use those keywords and phrases that Pinterest is telling you. And you want to make sure that it matches closely, as close as it can, to what it is, because sometimes it can go, ideas, it can go portfolio, it can go layout. It just, it takes you where you go. And as a matter of fact, this is so fresh on my mind because on Monday I had a session with a client of mine, and some of the things that she does is she is creating a program where how to build a workbook, a planner, or a journal in a weekend.
Oh, cool.
Which is really super cool. So one of the things that we were doing was like, okay, we ran a search on workbooks. You'd think the word workbook comes up. It didn't come up. We kept trying and kept trying and kept trying. And so finally at one point I said, I got an idea. And then I typed in the words, ways to market your business. And once that came up, boom, we had an explosion of, you could go here, you could go here, you could go here. And the other thing is, so what I had told her is, and she was like, wow, that was really insightful, because I would have been throwing the word workbook all over that thing. And I had no idea.
Right.
You don't know, if you've never used Pinterest before, your first thing that you should do when you start putting your pins up there is check the guided search. Because like my client, we would have just automatically assumed, why not workbook? Everybody talks about workbooks. Not searchable. It was not searchable in the least bit. We actually had to go to workbook. We had to find it within ways to grow your business, unique creative ways. And when we put creative ways to use your business in there, other people's workbooks started coming up.
Right.
So we're
Interesting.
like, okay, that's what we need to use. So I had to tell her, you can use workbook in the pin description, but let's do this. Let's make sure that that's not what says in the headline. So now
and I love that fact that it's telling you exactly what to use.
Exactly.
Like, it is telling you what people are actively searching on Pinterest. And, we went over this too in Google does that similar. If you type in let's use the term beach. If you type in beach in Google, it's going to say beaches near me, beach restaurants. Like, it'll give you terms that people are searching. So it's that same thing. So that's a huge tip off to you of what direction to go in with your keywords.
It's huge. And here's a really important thing about Pinterest. Pinterest allows us to put our keywords in two really good places. When it's, when we put our image /pin, whatever you want to use, our image pin up on Pinterest as we're uploading it, we have two spaces that we're going to use our keywords. Our headline, which is going to be very, very topic specific. So let's use my client again, who had the workbook in a weekend challenge, or, the program that she does. So instead of it saying workbook in a weekend, as the headline, we put creative ways to grow your business, because that's what we discovered worked. Now down at the pin description, we can easily duplicate that and say, are you looking for a creative way to grow your business using that same long tail keyword? Check out this opportunity to create a workbook in a weekend to grow your business online. And I know for a fact, grow your business online is a keyword phrase because I use it all the time. So I don't want to say we're keyword stuffing, because we're actually going to use them in sentences.
Right.
But we're going to use as many keywords as we can, because somebody may be looking for creative ways to grow my business, but another person could be looking for how to grow my business online. And so
Mm-hmm.
both of these people, we now have the opportunity by utilizing our keywords either in the headline or in the pin description and or both of them, depending upon how they're searching, our content can come up.
Well, and just in that sentence, you created one sentence and it had 3 keywords in it. Are you looking for creative ways to grow your business? This could be through a workbook, through, you
A
could list
planner
out
or whatever.
a few items. Like those are all keyword terms you're using. And it's conversational. It is how we speak. So it's not keyword stuffing. So in the course of 2 sentences, you could have 6 keywords in there that help you be found. And those are based off of what people are searching for on Pinterest already.
Exactly. I have one blog post, I've got one pin that is consistently going viral every single month. I think it was the month of July or August. It brought 50% of my website traffic from this
Wow.
one pin. And in that one pin, there's 2 sentences. And in those 2 sentences, there's 7 keywords and phrases.
Awesome. Yeah. And it makes sense. I mean, it is, if you're listing a few items, this is who I'm looking for. Are you looking for this? And then because we can do this, or this, all of a sudden that's, 5 keywords right now that makes sense. So that's great. And that goes back to too. So then, people are finding you through boards and they're finding you through your pins. So let's talk about boards and, because the keywords also apply here. And, boards are coming up when people are searching terms. So I have 2 questions to this and you can split them up as one is how many boards should we have? I mean, that's a number one. And I guess it's subjective based on what you talk about in your business. And then, I always talk about niching down and being focused about what your mission is and what you're doing. So you can't be a customer. Everybody can't be your customer until you're Amazon, but Amazon started with one thing and then they expanded as well. So, let's talk a little bit about niching on the boards because of that keyword search as well. So how many boards should you have and then niching of it?
You want to have at least 20 boards. Other than that, if I saw somebody with less than 20 boards, chances are I would not be following you. And I would think you're just starting. And there's nothing wrong with having less than 20 boards if you are just starting. But if you are really going to generate this, Pinterest loves something called fresh content. And fresh content does not always mean you writing a new blog post every single day and putting a new pin on there. It is you pinning other people's content. It is you sharing, it's creating a new image for an old blog post. So the idea of creating a new board like once every couple of weeks and then filling that new board looks to Pinterest like, hey, she's creating new content.
Right. But it could be a new image of a blog post that you've pinned previously.
Right. And so when it comes to boards, you are completely correct that you're going to go topic specific and niched, but ... It's general. So don't put marketing muse on it because nobody's searching for marketing muse.
Right.
You could put marketing strategies on there. You could put marketing tips on there. And you know what? You could have a board that has both of those, marketing tips and, creative ways to market your business, those. And you want to make sure that the content on those boards is also specific and niche down. The more specific niche down that you are using a general, the general phrases, that almost sounds like an oxymoron. Niche with a general phrase, but
totally though.
You understand what I'm trying to say. You don't want to go so far down that nobody's ever going to find that board. You want it to still be a general for, but there is, I'll give you an example of, I have 2 Pinterest accounts. And my original Pinterest account is me as the Pinterest coach. I have a board that says Pinterest designs, Pinterest pin designs, promoted pins, Pinterest strategy, Pinterest for business, Pinterest for bloggers, which all sounds like it's the same thing, but the content on each one of those boards is not.
Right.
It's a completely different, my Pinterest strategy board might talk about Tailwind as the scheduling program and how to use Tailwind. My Pinterest for bloggers could be about how to generate more traffic to your website and have more people read your Pinterest for business could be how you're going to make money using Pinterest. So the actual content itself on each one of those boards is niche down, but yet Pinterest for business is very general. So you see what I meant? I didn't mean to sound like an oxymoron, but they really do mean something when you are niche down like that, and it allows you to create that content. And the irony of this is those specific boards that do generate that kind of interest and it gets really specific. Those are the ones that get pulled up on Google. So if you create a board with your content on it that's very niche specific and it gets pulled into a Google search, there's a really good chance that you can start driving some Google traffic. We'll find your board, find your content on that board, especially if you're pinning to it frequently, because Google loves new content being pinned to it. Then it'll show up in a Google search. I actually wrote
that's awesome.
a post about that, how to do a backdoor to get yourself shown on Google on a Google search through a Pinterest board.
Oh, we're going to link to that in the show notes.
Okay,
we'll put a link to that, just to that blog post as well. A few weeks ago, also on this podcast, I did an episode about your business themes, and that's the place to start, defining the themes for your business, because once you have them written out, those are the overarching categories that you're talking about. So you can then decide if, you talk about email marketing, that might be too general, but perhaps then you can use that as a starting point to say, oh, well, I can talk about email marketing to grow your list, email marketing for sending newsletters, copy that should be, there's all these different branches that can come off of the email marketing tree that could then be boards that you create. So you can start by using your themes in your business that you've created and outlined, and then kind of see where you can niche, but not go too hard, not too far.
Don't go all the way down, because if that's the case, then most people aren't going to find your board, because as you had said earlier, there's 3 ways that people can find us: through our profile, our boards, and through our pins. And generally, most people will find us through our pins, but there is a huge search that happens with people just looking for boards, looking for a whole board that's already curated some content. And how can I find your board? And if you try to niche it down way too far, I'm not going to find you, because it might not be something that I'm typing in and searching for.
Yeah. And I think that's also a good thing to keep in mind of, it's a process as well. You're not going to, I know we've had discussions about how you've tested new things out and then have gone back and been like, oh, let me go and rework it, or we were even talking about A/B testing of put 2 things up and see. So, it isn't a set it and forget it type thing. Sure, there are pins that you can put up and you're like, it's just there, it's on the board, it's doing its thing. But it's a process. So just like everything else in your business, you're going to give it some attention. You're going to go back. You'll evaluate. We're not going to go too deep into this, but Pinterest also has analytics that you can jump into and look at, and just like every other platform that we work in, and see what's doing well, what people are responding to, so that you can then do more of that. Yes. I'm big on data. Is it working? Do more of that.
Yes. I openly admit to being a Pinterest addict. And part of my, I check my analytics way too much.
Oh, real, right.
I am bad about checking my analytics. And I'm like, you just checked this 2 days ago. What's different?
Right. Nothing's changed.
Nothing's changed. Like, go look. But the great thing about Pinterest analytics is you're not just watching your pins. You can also see, is there a board that you're actively using? Is this a really good board for me to continue pinning to? Is this one getting a lot of impressions? Because they'll do something and they'll say a percentage of your pins are being shared. So I know that that's a good board for me to continue to pin to.
Oh, awesome.
So you've got analytics not just based on the pins themselves, but your activity that's happening within there. You can also be following what's going on if you do video. They will show you the analytics with video, not just who's clicked on it, but did somebody go, they've got one analytic that says this percentage of people were there for 95% of the video. They clicked off after 5 seconds. So that allows you also, and I know you and I were having this conversation about some video that I tested out, and I'm getting a lot of impressions, but I'm not getting a whole lot of click-throughs. And so that's that moment where I take a look at and say, it's my content. Right. I know I keyworded it. That's what helped it show up in the impressions. I know that there was something that I did right about it to keep people there for 95% of the time, but the content itself was not engaging enough to have somebody click on it and go over to my website. So that allowed me to analyze what I was doing right and what I needed to tweak and make better. And so you have certain levels with your analytics. You can look at impressions, and impressions is just the number of how many times is your content being shown in a search. All that means is how good were my keywords?
Awesome.
Keywords being searched. So the impression number is really large because it always shows what's going on with your search. But the one that you want to look through is this thing called link clicks.
Mm-hmm.
As much as I love people to save my stuff and to look at it and say, oh, that's the prettiest picture ever, I need you over on my website.
Right.
My goal and why I spend any time on Pinterest is to drive traffic to my website. Because I know once I get you to my website, you're reading my blog post, my pop-up comes up, and the next thing I know, you're on my email list. And as we discussed before, sometimes people on my email list convert into clients of mine.
Mm-hmm.
My goal is to get you over to my website. So that link click number in my analytics is so important, because then I can look and see, okay, which blog post drove that traffic? Can I do a Pinterest pin for it? Can I even write another blog post? If that blog post topic was so fascinating that this many people clicked over, can I expand upon that? Can I do a whole series of blog posts? Can I turn that into a video? So I utilize that information to see what I could repurpose, what's working, what needs to be, where am I going with everything? And so, like I said, I get a little obsessed with, I'm more obsessed with my Pinterest analytics than my Google analytics, which probably could be reversed.
Right. But I know I get the same way about Google Analytics. I get all excited because when we make database decisions, we are making informed decisions. We're not just guessing like, well, I think people like it, or I liked it, so I think I should do more. And that's why you've got to just always go and take a step forward and try something and then check the analytics on it. I recently did a whole redo of my site, SEO and things like that. And I was in my Google Analytics and I've been thinking, oh, I should try and get some more of LinkedIn or do more on Instagram. I get so much traffic from Facebook that it's almost like, why should I even, like, you know what I mean? Like, I just should be doing Facebook Lives. Yeah, I'll get to them. They're coming. But like, those are the things that it's like, when you're already so far in, you should go deeper rather than necessarily say like, I need to start in another source from, here and bring it over. So it's just interesting when you make these database decisions that they are on something concrete. They're on other people's actions. And so I love to pop into the analytics and check those things out. And like you said, like you just riffed on how we can use them to better what we're doing and our mission. So make a series of something, make another post, do like that. To me is the brilliance. That was just the gold. And everybody needs to go back and rewind and listen to those few sentences again, because that then is how you go deeper.
Right.
And how you repurpose. And I want to just say, because I thought of this earlier in our conversation too, that Pinterest is not just about making more work for you.
Yeah.
It's about reusing what you have, so here is for instance, with me coming onto Pinterest, now that I have, 8 months of podcast episodes, I have all this content that now is the time for me to start repurposing this content. I am making new content, but I'm not making new content just for Pinterest. I'm taking snippets from what I've done in the past and putting them on Pinterest now to get more people to have their eyes on me. So it's a little bit more work, but it's not a lot more work in terms of. Right.
It's not. And it's not like I'm writing a blog post and the only place that it goes is Pinterest.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I always say I write a blog post and yes, the first place I go is Pinterest because of what I do, but it goes into my newsletter. It gets repurposed on LinkedIn. I will post up an image on Instagram and, within the Instagram link, go link in my bio, go to my website and see my blog post. That's at least 4 places right there. I've shared that in my Facebook group that I manage. So one piece of content can get repurposed into so many different places. And I've had people ask me before, but you're posting it everywhere. Isn't it just duplicating it? And, and I said, you know what? How many times have you seen something and immediately reacted? But if you saw it again, and maybe the second or the third time, you're like, oh my God, that's right. There's that blog post that I wanted to read. So maybe in a way, it's not such a bad thing because I'm going to trigger you to finally go over to my website and to read that blog post that I'm trying to get you to see. Then when you scroll down and there's the call to action is to get onto my email list.
Well, those algorithms move so fast as well in terms of the timelines and the feeds that we need to reinforce them. So, I mean, that's what the whole, I talked about this previously too, that's what the whole concept of Meet Edgar is based on,
Oh,
is
yeah.
you're recirculating
Mhm.
your content out. So you put in a bunch of content up to 1,000 posts, 1,000, and then it circulates it for you. So because we aren't seeing everything,
No.
when you hop on, you're only seeing a portion of what is being produced and put out there. So, and then that's why also wrapping our ideas up, keywords are so important. Search is so important in this, so that you are reaching the audience who wants what you have, what you are promoting, whether it's a product or a service. People are actively looking for what you have.
Yeah, exactly. I always look at Pinterest as a jumping off point. And here is something really interesting about Pinterest too. Because of the fact that we spend so much time optimizing things for Pinterest. And as I shared with you earlier, I've got 2 Pinterest accounts. One of them, I just started focusing 100% on the new Pinterest account because it has to do with a second business that I own because, I've got nothing else to do with my life.
Right, exactly. Well, when you're fab at something like Pinterest, you're like, I know I can make that happen too.
So I have a second business. So I've been focusing on the second business Pinterest account and not really been not doing so much with my original account. But the irony of what's going on here is because I had spent so much time optimizing everything for Pinterest. My number one source of traffic for that other website is organic search. So everything was so optimized for Pinterest that it has now translated into Google organic
search. Wow.
I'm getting more traffic from Google organic search than anything else because I had spent so much time optimizing for Pinterest.
Wow, that's awesome. Because then it's serving 2 purposes. I mean, they're still going to find you on Pinterest, but you've kind of
moved over to Google now.
And it's really,
not my intent to do that. It was just
but I mean, that's the ultimate repurposing, right?
There you go.
The ultimate, doing one work and having it show up in a few places.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we'll circle back on this, of this, because as I really dive further into my new Pinterest endeavors and my Pinterest journey, I want to share more of that. And I do want to credit Penny's course, the Pinterest Traffic Builder course, which you can find at pinteresttrafficbuilder.com. And, there'll be a link in the show notes to that as well. So you can work with Penny as well. She's fabulous. And she gives a lot. I mean, I've been in this course and she still does these monthly calls for it where you can hop in. I mean, there is so much value and she's really updated things. It's just like, in certain ways, how social media changes, Pinterest changes too. And so Penny keeps her finger on the pulse, which, we need these people in our lives. So if you're interested in it, I highly recommend her course to go seek her out.
Please do, because I love Pinterest. And I just see there's so much potential for, as we have discussed now through this whole, conversation, that it's not just about making those pretty pins. Mm-hmm. And making, how much can I make an image and I can put it up there and I'll be done with it. There's so much more because it is really almost like the foundation of what you're doing in your business. How to drive traffic to your website, how to grow your email list with it, how to build your client base with it. All of those amazing things that we're always trying to figure out how to do. My little secret is give Pinterest a try, because I truly believe, especially if your target is women and it's women, who have some sort of product, sales, or anything that you're able to connect with them online, I think that Pinterest is a wonderful place for you to be.
Awesome. Well, everyone, go hop out, check out Penny, hop onto Pinterest and start digging in, start looking at things and taking all your resources. Penny, thank you so much for being here with me today.
Thanks for having me. This has been fun.
Yeah. And we'll see you guys next week.
Thanks for joining me today. You can access more info in the show notes at thelonggamepodcast.net. If today's show connected with you in some way, please share it with your friends or hop on iTunes and leave me a review. Until next time, keep playing the long game.